After a couple of years of great Netflix shows, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist come together as the Defenders. Because Marvel loves some shared universe. I mean, hell, nowadays it's a bandwagon every movie studio seems to want to jump on. Marvel has one, DC has two, one for movies and one for TV. Hasbro's trying to start one, Universal Monsters, Hanna-Barbera of all people. The concept is gaining a lot of traction in Hollywood. Meanwhile, comics have been doing it forever. Fans give credit to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in Fantastic Four #1 for creating the first shared universe in comics, but not quite. It's the first consistent shared universe, but we'll get to that later. In actuality, characters coexisting is nothing new, and even if you can't give Fantastic Four full credit, it does ultimately still go back to Marvel and the classic pairing of the Human Torch. Wait, what? Archie? Are you sure? In the 1940s, Archie Comics, then called MLJ, was more concerned with superheroes than teenage hijinks, and in 1940 their top hero, the Shield, from their top title, Pep Comics, met the Wizard, headline star of Top Notch Comics, in a crossover that spread across both their titles, and also included two military cadets from two supporting features, Keith Cornell, the West Pointer, and Lee Sampson, the midshipman. The Shield and the Wizard would meet a few more times over the years, and meanwhile, MLJ military stars Corporal Collins and Sergeant Boyle would bump heads more than once. But where the Shield-Wizard crossover amounted to extended cameos in each other's features, over at Timely Comics, now known as Marvel, two of their top stars, the Human Torch and Submariner, met for a classic throwdown that showed two features could share the spotlight and make for a damn exciting story. In a sense, Shield and Wizard created the guest appearance, but it was Torch and Subby that created the true crossover. And lest you think these events were fun but had no lasting impact, let's turn our attention to Fawcett Comics. Captain Marvel had long since been one of the most popular characters in 1940s comics, and Bullet Man enjoyed some level of popularity as well. One lived in Whiz Comics, the other in Master Comics, but that didn't stop them from teaming up. And one story, beginning in Master Comics #21, pitted both heroes against the villainous Captain Nazi in a 3-part story that resulted in the origin of Captain Marvel Jr. Crossovers weren't quite as rare in the Golden Age as some would indicate, although it's true that most of the crossing over was done on the covers. Nearly every publisher with a decent-sized repertoire had an all-star title of their best features, and those usually featured all their main stars in scenes together, ranging from the dramatic to the silly. 4 favorites with Ace Comics' big hitters, Big 3 Comics where Fox Features top stars would gather, World's Finest giving us a plethora of great Superman and Batman whimsy, America's Greatest Comics letting Fawcett's top heroes shine bright, and the fun-filled adventures of Green Lantern, Flash, and Wonder Woman on each cover of Comics Cavalcade. But inside the books, you could still find some excellent crossing over from time to time. This is where the rapid-fire montage would normally go, but trying to summarize a multi-character crossover in a single panel is kind of tricky. So, one war-torn tale in Harvey Comics' Speed Comics had the Black Cat join Shock Gibson, Captain Freedom, Master of Disguise Ted Parrish, and the War Nurse and her girl commandos to stop a Japanese invasion of California. In the first issue of his solo title, Lev Gleason's Daredevil battles Hitler alongside a host of co-stars, including jungle hero Lance Hale, the Silver Streak, pilot Cloud Curtis, Dickie Dean Boy Inventor, and the time-displaced pirate Prince, as well as demonic yellow menace the Claw. Price Comics monster star Frankenstein, and that is the monster's name in this comic, engaged in a star-studded fight when his regular foe Bulldog Denny summoned a gathering of Price's greatest heroes, including the Black Owl, Dr. Frost, the Green Llama, and Yank and Doodle, as well as humor strip stars General and Corporal for some reason. Quality Comics heroes Spider Widow and Phantom Lady spent some quality time together in a series of stories in which they fought crime and each flirted with Spider Widow's boyfriend the Raven. Tech stories were often graced with tales collecting all of a comic's stars. The multiple kid stars of Ace Comics' humor title Scream Comics got together for a comedic tale in every issue. And those are a few large-scale gatherings, but there were still single pairings of heroes to be had. The Angel once went to visit Namor on a social call. Rainbow Boy was Hydro Man's protege, even though they had separate features. And by the pre-Silver Age, Batman and Superman were teaming up in World's Finest every month. Green Arrow and Aquaman met more than a couple of times, and not forgetting that there were already super teams, not the least of which was the Justice League. Wait, okay, hold on. There's a Justice League movie coming, I'll hold on to that thought. But despite all this teaming up, these stories were only consistent within the stories themselves. When the team-up was done, the character went back to existing in a vacuum until the next team-up. Their worlds only lined up when it was convenient. Superman would go to Atlantis, Aquaman would go to Atlantis, Wonder Woman would go to Atlantis, but all these versions of Atlantis, despite the heroes being portrayed as coexisting, were different. The writers and artists didn't even consider they should be the same. They would be reconciled with each other later, but I'm talking about at the time. What Stan and Jack did, beginning with the Fantastic Four, was start a world that was internally consistent across all the titles Marvel produced. Submariner was king of Atlantis in Fantastic Four, but also in X-Men and Avengers, and even Daredevil, and it was always the same Atlantis. If the Skrulls invaded Earth in one comic, the hero of another, even if he wasn't participating in the battle, might read about it in the newspaper or deal with the fallout. A villain particular to Spider-Man might very well fight Captain America or Iron Man without any fanfare or even necessarily a mention of Spider-Man at all. In the 60s, this set Marvel apart, but the move was so important. Soon, every comic company, from middle-tier movers like Charlton Comics to massive juggernauts like DC, were putting all their titles, or at least their adventure titles, into consistent shared universes. And so, Marvel and Netflix make 4 great shows, those 4 heroes share one great universe, and that is the Defenders' Golden Age influence.